All right, starting off with Rakdos, this card is called Carnage Gladiator, so it must be awesome. Two colorless, a black and a red for a 4/2. Whenever a creature blocks, that creature's controller loses one life, and you get to regen this guy. All right, so he's pretty awesome. This guy seems to do exactly what Rakdos wants to do, which is attack, 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 attack. The regen cost is pretty steep, but on turn 4 you play this guy, and then you're probably not unhappy just bashing in with him. I give him a 3.5.
Very easily. I think he's
Yeah.
a very easy for 3.5.
Yeah.
I mean, you bash in with them, you don't. The idea is if they're blocking, it's probably going to kill most things in combat.
Right.
In which case, you're getting a free card.
Right.
And so no big deal. Plus, they're taking damage.
Exactly. Yeah, and then the fact that any creature they block, they lose a life. Like it just makes all of their walls so much worse if they're trying to use that strategy against you. All right, this is Exava Rakdos Blood Witch, two colorless, a black and a red for a 3/3 first strike haste with Unleash. And if that wasn't enough, each other creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has haste. So all of your subsequent Unleash guys are hasty. This seems pretty absurd. I'd rate this as probably a 4. What do you think?
It's going to remain to be seen how valid aggressive decks can be.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are, then this is going to be a very important piece of them.
Yeah.
This type of mechanic.
I have not done a paper pre-release yet, but just seeing the comments from people that did the paper pre-release. Granted, it's not a draft environment; it's a
Sealed.
sealed. So you would expect things to be a little clunky or a little slower. Although with the guild packs, maybe that's not true. I'm not sure, but they were saying that aggro decks are definitely possible. And if aggro decks are possible, this card is just flat out absurd. I mean, like on turn 4, you remember like how powerful Blood Fray Giant was, and this is just like way better.
Oh yeah, this is no doubt a very powerful card. I would give it a 4, and I would play this even in a non-aggressive deck.
Yeah,
A 4/4 first strike haste is just going to be very difficult to beat in combat.
Yeah. Master of Cruelties, 3 colorless, black and a red for a 1/4 first strike death touch. He can't attack alone, and whenever he attacks a player and isn't blocked, that player's life total becomes 1. Master.
He can only attack.
Oh, I'm sorry. He can only attack alone. Good catch. And he does not assign normal combat damage. I guess Master of Cruelties assigns no combat damage this combat. Okay. So, pretty powerful. I mean, the fact that he has Death Touch, like they just never want to let him through, and he's just going to ping and kill anything that blocks him. I guess unless it's a 4/4 first strike or something. But, yeah, this guy seems pretty absurd. I'd give him a 4.
I don't know. I mean, he's inherently weak because he can never actually kill them.
Yeah.
He can get them to 1 life, but he can't kill them by himself, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give him a 4. He's very solid.
Yeah.
I'd give him a 3.5 because he dominates all creature combat.
Yeah.
I mean, first strike death touch. If you keep him back on defense, there's no way they're going to be able to attack in.
Yeah, I mean, he could be reasonably splashed in a Orzhov deck or something.
Mm-hmm.
And be quite the threat.
So he has a lot of potential. I'd give him a 3.5 rather than a 4. I could be wrong.
Okay. Okay, Morg Burst, 4 colorless, black-red, sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Morg Burst deals damage to target creature or player equal to the power of the card. Return this way. Yeah, that seems like value. 6 mana is a lot, but like if the format's slower, like this will be a pretty powerful removal spell and recursion effect. I'd say 3.55.
Yeah, I think it's solid. Again, depending on how slow the format is, I think this could even be a 4.
Really?
Probably only 3.5, but it could be a 4.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let me take that back. It's 3.5. If it put it into play, easy 4.
Yeah.
But the fact that it puts it just in your hand, probably.
I mean, if it put it into play, it'd just be like pretty obscene. Yeah, I guess we'll see. All right, Showstopper. Colorless, black-red for an instant. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain. When this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to target creature and opponent controls. Interesting. So this could be kind of reactionary. They remove your creature, you respond to shock something. That doesn't seem that exciting. It could just also be you bash in with a lot of stuff and then like wipe their board if they block the wrong way. I could see this card being hard to use well just because it's very dependent on like how your opponent blocks. I guess if they're attacking you and you're on the defensive, maybe you have a little bit more control over it. I don't know. I guess I'd probably give this a 2.5.
That's really hard to say. I feel like in the solid aggressive deck, this is going to basically be exactly what it says, the showstopper. I mean, this is going to end the game.
Really?
I could see it in an aggressive deck. I could see it being a pretty easily a solid 3. Probably not much higher than that. But I'd probably give it like a 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you're going to take this over like a good creature, at least in the beginning.
No, that's the problem.
Yeah. All right, Sire of Insanity, 4 colorless, a black and a red for a 6/4. At the beginning of each end step, each player discards his or her hand. It's kind of odd. I mean, 6 mana for a 6/4 body is, I guess, a crawworm, right? And then you have this weird, like, everyone discards their hand at the end of the turn. I don't know. That's awkward. This guy could just be an awkward card that if you're a little slow, he just does not help you, come back at all. I give this guy 2.5.
I see his ability can be really relevant. Although it's hard if you can't power him out. If you can power him out, then like ramp into him.
Yeah,
he can be pretty good.
But if you're ramping into a 6/4, I mean that's good enough. I feel.
That's true.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like I don't know. Maybe if people have a tendency to sandbag like 2 or 3 cards in their hand, maybe he will reliably get good card advantage. But a 6/4 body just doesn't feel that relevant. Like when you have like a 7/6 for 6 mana and stuff like that you can just always slam down on turn 6.
That's true. I want it to be good.
Yeah, I do too.
But yeah, probably a 2. I'd probably leave with a 2.5.
Yeah,
but it's hard to say.
I have a feeling this is going to be just one of those cards that like you might take, but then just never play.
That could be.
Spike Jester, black-red for a 3/1 haste. Pretty straightforward. Seems like it could be okay. It's no Daring Skyjack, I guess. And again, like caveats to this format probably being slow, etc. I'd give this guy, I guess, a 2.5. I guess he does what Rakdos wants to do, I guess. 2.5.
Yeah, I'd probably give him a 2.5. If I knew I was going to draft aggressive, then I mean, I think he's very easily a 3. I mean, a 3/1 haste it's going to get either it trades pretty easily, and that's the downside. If they just play a bear, it bounces off their bear.
Yeah.
But on the play, if you play a 3/1 haste, it's going to get in there and it's going to do some work.
Yeah.
So probably 2.53 sounds right.
All right. Okay, starting off with Izzet here, we have Blast Ingenious. I like the name. For 4 colorless, a blue and a red, we get a sorcery, choose target creature or player, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. Blast of Genius deals damage equal to the discarded card's converted mana cost to that creature or player. Wow, that was a mouthful. So basically you're getting +1 cards, and then you're, killing one of their creatures probably. Pretty good effect overall for 6 mana. I like that a lot. It has that advantage over Thought Flare where you're actually impacting the board when you play it. The problem with Thought Flare was like, oh, I just tapped out for Thought Flare and now I'm dead because I didn't do anything for a turn. I want to give this a 3.5 and I want to love it. What do you think?
I would definitely give it 3.5. I can also foresee myself choosing the wrong target and accidentally choosing myself.
It's like because you want to draw cards, right? That's why I'm choosing myself. Oh, I'm dead.
Just saying.
Dragon Shift. So far, Blue-Red has some of the best names. Colorless, a blue and a red for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a 4/4 blue-red dragon, loses all abilities and gains flying, and then you can overload it for some absurd amount of mana. It looks like 3 and 2 blue, 2 red. So this is like a combination of Biomass Mutation and Hydroform, like rolled into one card, I guess.
Hydroform used lands, but
yeah. I mean, similar. I don't know how good this card's going to be. I mean, 7 mana is a tall order, but I guess it probably kills them if every creature becomes a dragon.
I think
Right?
I think it's pretty solid. I mean, it's a reasonable trick.
Yeah,
It interacts pretty well with Simic counters, so evolve counters.
that's true.
Um, I think it'll be pretty solid. I'd give it a 3.
A 3? That seems reasonable. I think it's no teleportal, though.
No, teleportal is insane.
Yeah. Okay, Flux Charger. 2 colorless, a blue and a red for a 1/5 flyer. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may switch Flux Charger's power and toughness until end of turn. This card looks like it could be awesome. It plays defense. It has that like controlling combo-ish nature to Izzet, where like boom, big damage out of nowhere. And this guy also helps you stay alive in the meantime, and maybe even peck away for incidental damage. I like this guy a lot. I'd give him at least a 3, maybe a 3.5. No, I'm going to bump it to 3.5.
It's hard to evaluate, but yeah, I mean he's a great defender, and then
Yeah.
when you want to turn on the gas, he can
Yeah.
kill them very quickly.
I just see him having so many awesome synergies, with cards like Inaction Injunction and Dramatic Rescue and stuff like that. Where like they just can't stop the 5/1 beats in the air.
Yeah, he's just good value. Okay, I can get behind the 3.5.
Okay, so we have Goblin Test Pilot. 1 colorless, a blue and a red for a Goblin Wizard who is a 0/2 flyer. You can tap him to deal 2 damage to target creature or player at random. That does not seem very exciting. Solid 1. Solid 0. I don't know. Anytime you're flipping coins and doing damage to random things is not my ideal card.
Yeah, this sounds pretty miserable. I mean, I don't think I've seen any ways to permanently pump toughness, and even if there were, it still isn't good.
I mean, this is maybe a testament to how rarely I play Paper Magic these days, but like, how do you randomly target permanents in Paper Magic?
I think you roll a die.
Is that it? You assign each thing a number and then roll a die?
I think so. It's pretty dumb.
That seems awful. Yeah, boo. This card's a 0. Alright, Melik Izzet Paragon. 4 colorless, blue-red, for a 2/4. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery spell. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your library, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This guy also seems insane. Granted, you need to have like a decent density of instants and sorceries in your deck. But if you have a decent amount of removal, like this guy gets pretty stupid pretty fast. He has 6 mana, but 2/4 is a decently defensive body. I want to give him a 4. What do you think?
Future Sight on wheels. I think it's pretty solid. I wish his last ability worked on all instants and sorceries, not just ones you cast off your library.
Right.
But I would take him early. I may even give him in. So if you're playing Izzet, you're going to have a reasonable number of instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
So he might even be better. Like he might just be a very early pick.
It's interesting. I'm like, now that I'm really looking at these cards in depth, I'm actually really excited for Izzet because in RTR, Izzet was very combo-ish, and it was like not very good and very frustrating. Like you're building up your board, waiting to top deck the teleportal or do whatever to actually win the game. But a lot of these cards look very controlling and like more effective at playing the control game, than Izzet was in Return to Ravnica. So I could see Izzet control being a thing in DGM.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'd like this to be better, but I think it's probably a 4.
Yeah. Okay, Nivik Cyclops, 1 colorless, blue-red for a 1/4 defender, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Nivik Cyclops gets +3/+0 until end of turn and can't attack this turn, and can attack this turn as though it didn't have defender. This card seems less exciting. Maybe it's better than I give it credit for. I don't know. Don't see this guy doing a ton of work. Maybe he gets in for a few times. I don't know. I'd give him like a 2.5.
I think he's very solid. I'd give him a 3.
Really?
I mean, he blocks when you need him to. He blocks pretty well.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while he'll get in basically for free damage because they're not going to really want to block a 4/4.
A 3/4. Oh no, you're right. A 4/4. Yeah, because he's a 1/4. Yeah, I can see him being a 3. Okay, Ral Zarek, 2 colorless, a blue and a red for a planeswalker who starts with 4. I think the term is loyalty counters. And you can +1 him for tap target permanent, then untap another target permanent. You can -2 him to have him deal 3 damage to target creature or player. and then you can -7 him, and then flip 5 coins. Take an extra turn after this one for each coin that comes up heads. Completely absurd. This is how coin flipping should be done. This guy is a solid 5. If I could rate cards higher, I would rate him higher. Like, this guy is so absurd and limited. Like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
He's a planeswalker in limited. I mean,
Yeah.
very rarely is this not the right pick. Not only is he going to be worth tickets,
Yeah.
he's also going to have a major impact on the board.
Yeah. I mean, and the absurd thing with this one is, like, as you know, like you said, planeswalkers are planeswalkers in limited. They're always, good, barring like maybe a couple random exceptions, and even then they're not the worst. But this guy does everything you want a planeswalker in limited to do. He protects himself. He does damage to your opponent. He kills your opponent's creatures, and if they don't deal damage to him for 3 turns, you get to time walk them potentially 5 times, which is just silly. So yeah, solid 5. Alright, Beetle form Mage, 1 colorless, a blue and a green. It's a 2/2, and you can pay a blue and a green to give it +2/+2 and flying until end of turn. And you can only do that once a turn. I predict that this will be the Frilled Octopus of Dragon's Maze. This guy looks pretty solid to me. A 4/4 flyer is tough to deal with. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's awesome.
Yeah. I want to give him a 3/5.
Yeah, 3.5 is reasonable for this.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate being in Simic because he comes into play at low power toughness. He's not like the creatures.
Yeah, it's a little a little awkward. Like Frilled Octopus was nice because it was the 1/3, so it reliably evolved everything when it was played.
Should probably point out that Frilled Oculus is the card he's referring to, but it really should be better known as Frilled Octopus.
Frilled Octopus. I got like a few comments saying like, "Do you know you're mispronouncing that?" And I was like, "Oh, I know, it's intentional."
It's not a mispronunciation.
No.
All are printed incorrectly.
Yeah, it's true. All right, Bread for the Hunt. 1 colorless, a green and a blue. Enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. I mean, I look forward for the day that I get to slam this after Cloudfin Raptor, and just live the dream. This is one of those live the dream cards where I'm not sure if it's actually good. It just feels so good when it's doing it.
Yeah, I feel like if your creatures with 1/1 counters aren't hitting them, you're already winning.
Yeah.
But this definitely keeps you ahead.
Yeah.
I see good interactions with the what is that called? The 4-mana 2/3 green creature that adds counters on anything you want.
The 4-mana 2/3. Oh, Ivy Lane Denizen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting potential interaction with Bioshift for free cards.
It's not really a free card. I mean, since you just lost a card playing Bioshift.
It cycles. Don't hate. Okay. Crassus Incubation. 2 colorless, a green and a blue for an enchantment. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. You can pay 3 mana with a blue and a green, so 3 total, I mean. Return Crassus Incubation to its owner's hand. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature. That's an interesting card. So very similar to, I guess, the black-white variety, 1,000 Lashes, in that it's a 4-mana like you're done card on a certain creature if you need to do that. But you could bounce it to your hand again, I guess, to make your guys bigger if you have nothing better to do for 7 mana. I'd give this a solid 3/5 just as like a removal spell. And then the fact that like you could maybe have some random upside in a different way is always gravy.
Yeah, I agree with exactly what you just said.
All right, Plasma Capture. 2 green, 2 blue, and an instant. Counter target spell at the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase. Add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Finally, a mana leak. But it's 4 mana instead of 2.
Mana drain.
Mana drain, same thing. Not really, but yeah, I don't know. Again, it's the 4 mana counter, disclaimer. Mystic Genesis was the 5 mana counter thing, which was like occasionally pretty good. I don't know how relevant the mana ramp will be once you get to 4, let alone 2 blue and 2 green, which is maybe a tall order. I guess I give this a 2.
No, if you can reasonably get the mana to work out and be able to cast this on turn 4, I think this is absurd. I mean, if you end up dropping I guess that being said, you're only going to be ramping if you reasonably ramp into like a 6 drop or something. Then it's
Right.
not that great because you're only ramping by 1 turn.
Yeah.
But if you end up like with 7 or 8, I don't know, are there even 8 drops in this format? I haven't really seen that many. But if you
there's
ramp
always
into
Borborygmos.
there's what?
There's always Borborygmos.
There is. So I don't know. In like a big mana deck, I think this is going to be hilarity. That being said, it's reasonably probably like a 2 or 2.5, but
Yeah.
I'd really like it to be better.
Yeah. So I guess like if you're doing the big mana deck, it probably fits in better. I just think in general though, solid 2, just because think about the sequence of events that have to go right for this card to be awesome. You have to go, forest, island, and then you have to pass with that mana open. They have to cast something, and then you have, it has to be like not like a 1 mana or 2 mana spell to really get much value. It has to be, I guess, like bigger if you want to get like an 8 mana thing or a 7 mana thing. And then you have to follow it up with having that card in your hand the next turn and maybe another land to play to get there. Like all of that put together, assuming they're not doing anything else. Like I don't know, that just seems
Not really.
seems
I mean,
like a lot to ask.
you don't if you have 4 lands in play when you play this, and they cast
Yeah.
something, even if they only cast like a 2 or 3 mana spell,
Okay.
that's still going to give you access to 7 mana, even if you don't make your land drop.
Okay, fair. But they still have to cast a spell for you to counter, and you have to have this spell in your hand to cast.
Yeah, and if you don't, and it's later in the game or something, then it's less good. But it's still an unconditional 1-for-1.
That's true.
And in later on, or later on, you can either drop lots of big stuff. You can fuel
Yeah.
X spells. I think it has a lot of potential. I
That's true.
agree, it's probably not great, but I think it's 2.5. 2.5.
Yeah, I could see this being pretty hilarious in the right deck for sure. Okay, Progenitor Mimic, 4 colorless, a green and a blue for a 0/0 shapeshifter, so you know it's going to be bonkers. You may have Progenitor Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except it gains. At the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature isn't a token, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of this creature. So yeah, this looks bonkers. So if I'm reading this correctly, it basically comes down as the best creature on the battlefield, and then it starts making more of that, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absurd.
It's absurd.
It's a 4.5.
It's a 4.5, I agree.
I mean, I guess what's the difference between a 4.5 and a 5? That
So
you'll never pass this?
you'll never pass either. I would say
Like I can't see
Yeah.
I can't see anything other than a foil
yeah.
that you take over this. I mean, I guess you could call it 5.
Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, I would probably take Ralzeric over it, assuming it's worth more tickets.
Yeah, it's worth more tickets, and honestly, it's probably actually better.
Yeah. But yeah, just because Ralzeric comes into play on turn 4 and this comes into play on turn 6, but and also because it's a little more powerful. But yeah, I mean, this card is like as pretty much as insane as they come, I think. So I think a 5 is fair in terms of like the difference between a 4.5 and a 5. I guess degrees of absurdity. I don't know how many 5s we're going to give out, but yeah, this is probably one of them. Okay, Species Gorger, 3 colorless, blue-green for a 6/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. I mean, 6/6 is pretty fat, and maybe there are some cards that have like enter the battlefield effects that I'm not thinking of that might be relevant, but there aren't too many of them. I don't know. I guess maybe this has some good synergy with Evolve, kind of like a Leyline Phantasm. I give it a 2.5, maybe a 3.
Yeah, I'd probably err on the side of like 3.5 or 2.
Wait, 3.5 or 2?
Or 2.5 or 2. Probably 2.5 though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, so Varel of the Hulklade, 1 colorless, a green and a blue for a 1/4, and you can tap a green and a blue and tap it to have for each counter on target artifact, creature, or land, put another of those counters on that permanent. So yeah, that seems pretty bonkers. This guy basically evolves, like a creature for 2 mana, and he's a 1/4 for 3, which is relevant. It's like a good body for that cost, so he's hard to kill. I'd say this guy's a solid 4.
I'd give him a 3.5. I mean, you have to have an evolved creature that has already evolved as well on board for him to start doing anything.
Well, but that's not unreasonable since he's a 1/4.
No, it's not. It's not unreasonable.
but I think I don't know. I mean, he's good.
It'll be interesting to see that, like with Gate Crash, you had 3 Gate Crash packs to grab Evolve guys. There aren't probably as many Evolve guys in Dragon's Maze as there were in Gate Crash. So the number of Evolve guys that are going to be in your deck is going to be significantly lower, when you're playing Simic, right?
Right.
So maybe he's less good.
Yeah, I think,
minimum 3.5. I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think a 3.5. But I want to go back for a second on Species Gorger.
Okay.
He actually might be pretty good with the gate guys.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
There are a reasonable amount of end of the battlefield effects, and so he might be better than we're giving credit for. So probably actually change it to a 3. I'll bet there's gonna be ways to use it.
Yeah, that's fair.